Hi everyone, good morning. Welcome to this session on Introduction to Gemini and its use cases. In this session, we will discover and demonstrate how Gemini with its multimodal capabilities will help us reimagine a lot of our current existing processes and applications. Now, this being a 90 minutes workshop, I will devote about 65 to 70 minutes just to show you demos, taking data and images and videos from a wide range of fields. And then we will see firsthand how Gemini will significantly change the day in our lives and how we can go about automating a lot of things. So the agenda for today's session is this. I'll take about 5 to 7 minutes just to kind of give you an overview about what is Gemini. Here I'll be using some slides to set the context. Post that, we will shift gears and we will go and see how do we access Gemini. Now that we know Gemini, what are the ways and avenues we can access Gemini if you are a developer or if you are a end user or a student who just wants to tinker around and see what is it that Gemini has for me. So we'll see that in getting started for developers. And then we will really go ballistic. We will see a lot of demos in Collab notebooks. We will see, take a lot of images and videos and text data and see how Gemini can significantly help us reimagine a lot of things. And then finally, we will go from collabs to a Streamlit-based demos, and we'll see how the end looks like so that you as practitioners can build something similar to demonstrate to your internal stakeholders or to your investors, etc. And then towards the end, I'll break for question and answers. And if you still have question and answers beyond the session, we have a Google Cloud booth out there. So please feel free to reach out to us with your queries. And do come up with some very interesting prompts on Gemini. We will put your prompts and your pick as well in the Google Cloud booth, right? So with that, let's get started. And for those of you who want to access Gemini and kind of try out some of the labs that we will be showing you in this Collab notebook, I'll be sharing you this Collab notebooks and the GitHub repositories after this session. You may want to have some credits to kind of build on top of that. So you can please scan this and you will be able to register yourself and we will send you the credits. And I think that is good enough for you to get started, build some demos and kind of get started on Gemini. So welcome to the Gemini era. I'm sure you all have heard about Gemini in the recent announcement starting from mid-December. And there is a lot of curiosity on what Gemini can do differently or how bigger Gemini is when compared to some of the other large language models and etc. So what makes Gemini truly unique is that it is state-of-the-art, truly and natively multimodal. So unlike some of our other multimodal models which are trained for different modalities, and then you have different models which are then stitched together to kind of give you a multimodal output, Gemini is trained upwards multimodal, and because of this, you will not see it kind of giving you a response which looks like hamstrung between different types of models. And you will also see how superior the results are of Gemini when compared to some of the other multimodal models. And it is backed by state-of-the-art reasoning capabilities. And in some of the benchmarks done, as we all do in some of our latest models released, Gemini Ultra exceeds on 30 out of the 32 parameters, including on MMLU, on reasoning, on math, on physics, etc. So you have a multimodal model, and then you have a state-of-the-art reasoning capabilities all embedded in one single model. And then it is highly optimized right from the training phase. It is trained on Google's TensorFlow processing units, which are proprietary of Google and are custom hardwares, accelerators built for these kind of large-scale computing. And it is these TensorFlow processing units which power Google's planet-scale applications like search, Gmail, YouTube, and so on. And in terms of Gemini, it's again available in different flavors so that you have the right cost benefit for your use case and you're not spending significant amount of time and energy kind of in tuning these models as well. And next, and perhaps the most important thing that kind of gets adjoined with all the LLMs is responsibility and safety at the core. So we have ensured that the data sets that we have used to train Gemini model and the evaluation of these models done post-training is perhaps the most sophisticated of all the models that has been released from Google Cloud so far. And we have done a lot of novel research and analysis to ensure that there is no bias and toxicity leaking into the outputs of these models. And then we also have involved a lot of third-party and external vendors just to evaluate and test these models so that there is no blind spot that we could have otherwise missed by kind of evaluating it ourselves. And Gemini is available in 3 flavors. You have Nano for handheld devices. It will be primarily powering Pixel. You might have heard about the announcements of other handheld devices collaborating with Gemini as well. Gemini Pro is what I will be using in today's demonstration. It's a mid-size model in the Gemini class, but you can use it for a wide range of complex reasoning tasks. And this is currently in GA. It is available, so you can, if you want to build production-grade applications, you can use Gemini Pro right away. And then is Gemini Ultra, which is the heaviest of the class, and it is primarily made available for highly complex tasks. So this is still in private preview, and few of our customers are trying this out, and this will be shortly in GA as well. So in our session today, Gemini Pro is the model that I will be using. So one last slide before we kind of go to the demos. In terms of how Gemini and all the other Google Cloud offering comes in, this is a hamburger kind of a representation of Google's offerings. So at the base of it is the AI optimized infrastructure. I believe for all of us who have tried LLMs, tried tuning the models and doing RLHF, etc., we would have realized by now that the infrastructure is the unsung hero in the entire LLM stack. No matter how big or what is the use case, at some point you would want to tune your model, and that's where the AI optimized infrastructure does come into play. So at the bottom, at the core of it, we have the AI optimized infrastructure available within Google platform. On top of this, we have the foundation models like Gemini. And apart from Gemini, there are about 130 plus other open source models that are made available within Vertex AI, which is Google's platform. So you have a wide range of diversity of models for which you can choose and build your use cases. So there is no restriction or kind of a binding that you only have to use Google native or Google proprietary models itself. And then you have 2 gateways for accessing these models. One is the AI Studio, and then you have the Vertex AI, both of which I will dwell in detail in the upcoming slides. And on the top, you have Duet AI, which is our AI pair programmer solution. So if you want to generate code, validate the code, generate unit test cases, that's where Duet AI comes with the solution. So this is how the entire stack of generative AI in Google comes in, right from the infrastructure to API-based solutions. So with that, let's move to as to how do we get started with as a developers. So there are 2 avenues for us to start using Gemini. First is the Google AI Studio. It was earlier called as Macro Maker Studio. How many of you have tried Macro Makers here and kind of written some prompts? Okay, so if you want to explore Gemini and kind of if you do not have credits as of now, this is the go-to tool. It's a free web-based tool that you can simply access from your browser with just a Google or a Gmail account, and you can start giving your prompts both text, image, and videos, and you can start generating outputs. And then from an enterprise use case perspective, I'm sure as you would know, you would want to have guardrails put into your prompts. You would want to ensure that there is data privacy, there is VPCSC configurations, and there is ability for you to control the cost and who accesses your models. That's where the Vertex AI Studio comes in. And for enterprise related use cases, you would have to use Vertex AI Studio. So these are 2 different gateways. So now let's see how we can go about using Google AI Studio. This is the Google AI Studio, and I hope this is legible enough at the back. Okay. So in the right hand side, you will see the options to select the models. So currently, there are 2 models available here, Gemini Pro and Gemini Pro Vision. So let's say if you only have a text-only use case, let's say you want to summarize, you want to analyze text, or you want to extract sentiments, that's where you will use Gemini Pro. And as soon as you select a Gemini Pro, you will see some prompts appearing with the shaded this thing. And these are some helper prompts for you to get started in case you kind of are exploring this anew. And you can kind of click on tab this and then run these prompts. I'm just starting with some basic hello world toy kind of a prompts. And this is for text related use cases. For multimodal use cases like on Gemini Pro Vision, so you can select Gemini Pro Vision here and then upload your images and kind of ask questions on top of those images as well. And here you have the familiar parameters on temperature to reduce your randomness. And then you have advanced settings on top K, top P, and output length as well. And perhaps the most important feature also here is the safety settings. So if you want to regulate your output and ensure that it is not violating any of these kind of concerns, you have these options to change these levers and regulate the output as well. And let's say now if you have given a prompt and if you want to write that in a collab or operationalize that, so it's a very simple way of clicking on here and going to get code. So you can see the corresponding Python code for accessing these APIs from your collab or from your IDEs. And then you can get started right from here. Or if you want to open this entire thing in a collab as is, so this opens up in the collab notebook. And then you can start using this collab to integrate your up the stream and down the stream applications and go about building your use cases. And then if you want to call Gemini as an API from your IDEs, you can go to get API keys. And here you can kind of give your Google Cloud project, generate the API keys, and then use that to configure from your IDEs and get started. So this is how, as an end user, you can access Gemini Pro and Gemini Pro Vision and start using building some basic use cases. And there is also this prompt gallery that is made available for you so that you get an intuition about what is Gemini Pro Vision and how the multimodal use cases work. And this can be a very good starting point as well. So this, as I said, is primarily from an end user if you want to tinker around and play around some of these prompts. Now, if you want to build enterprise use cases, that's where you will have to go to Vertex AI Studio. So this is the Vertex AI platform, which is primarily our unified ML platform built for training and operationalizing the ML models. In the same platform, we have gone ahead and integrated the Gen AI capabilities in Vertex AI Studio. So you have all the different models stacked up in this particular platform. It could be on language, vision, speech, and so on. Our topic of interest today is the multimodality. So again, here you will see a lot of helper prompts given for you to get started. So let's say I'll take a simple prompt on extracting text from images. So the look and feel of this UI is pretty much similar to how the Macromaker or the AI Studio was there earlier. So you have the option to select the model in the drop-down, regulate the temperature, the token limits, the safety settings, and then you can pass in your prompt here as an input and then kind of click on submit. And then you also have the option to get code here in either of the languages. So yeah, this is how you kind of get the code and then implement pretty much the same way as you saw earlier. So this is a very basic toy example where we have just uploaded an image and we are asking Gemini to read the text that is appearing in this image. So now we have seen how do we access Gemini, what are the various avenues of accessing Gemini, and how do you write some simple helper prompts. And if you have an idea in mind, you can kind of upload your images or video or text context here, ask Gemini to kind of or generate something, and then you can go to get code and then use that in your collab to kind of further deploy it. So if you click on open notebook here, again this opens the collab notebook from where you can write the entire applications. So now that we have seen some basic ways of writing the prompt and how do we get started, let's now really get into the cutting edge models of Gemini. So this is the Collab notebook that I'll be using for this demo. So first, what we have done is we have installed the Vertex AI SDK for Python here. And then I will be, we'll have to restart the kernel. This is to ensure that I get the latest refresh packages and libraries so that I can build on top of it. And post this, I will authenticate my Google Collab account. And then we will have to configure the project here in our the Google Cloud account and the location where the project is hosted. And then we are importing some libraries from the Vertex AI generative models to basically generate the content or take in the image, etc. And then I'm instantiating the Gemini Pro Vision model. And then we have some helper functions. Basically, all the images and videos that we will be showing today, they are all uploaded in Google Cloud Storage Bucket, which is the object-based storage solution in GCP, similar to an S3 or Azure Blob Storage. So for us to read those images and video from that object storage and pass in as an input to the model, we will need to have some helper functions, which is what these helper functions basically do. So you have the helper function to display the images and convert the image to byte format, load the image from the URLs, and then display the content as image in this collab, display the content as video here, and display the content for multimodal prompts, etc. So you have this series of helper functions that will help you kind of build a seamless application. So now we are all set, and now we are all kind of ready to explore Gemini and see its multimodal avatar in full nature. So what I'll do as part of this demo is, first I'll take you some toy demos or some images that we all can be familiarized with. And then I will discuss and show you how you can apply these demos in our real world use cases so that we see a pattern, we understand, we get the intuition, and then we go ahead and see some real world use cases. So during this demo, while you see some code initially, my suggestion or request would be for you to all see how the multimodality works, get the intuition, and imagine how we could actually go about implementing this in your day-to-day scenarios. And I can assure you that irrespective of what field or domain you come from, it could be from the hiring team, or it could be from the coding team, or it could be in the sales, marketing, if you're a stock trader, it could be any field, you will see a lot of applications, and we will see how it can impact just about any field. So I've taken two toy images to start off. Let's say the first image is that of a bowl containing some fruits, and the second image is the price of each of these fruit. So our use case is, just to get started, is if I'm a consumer, I need to determine how much should I pay for this entire bowl of fruits. Right? So of course, there is a bit of a counterintuition here. Nobody pays, at least for apples, on the number of fruits. We pay apples for the way that, but let's assuming that if you pay for apples on the number of fruits they have. So how do we go about using Gemini as a model here? Just take a step back and see how can we implement this in any of our current LLM or text-based models. So we as humans, if we were given this task, what we would do is first identify the fruits in this image, then go about counting the images, and then go about finding the price of these fruits in the price chart, then do a multiplication of that, then do a sum total, and then finally add up those values. So I can give the same instruction for Gemini to go about calculating the price that I would have to pay for this entire bowl of fruits. So this is the set of prompt instructions that we have given. So first I'm saying that consider the following image that contains fruits. These are the images from where we are loading the URLs. And once the images are loaded, these are the instructions that I'm giving for my demo today. So I'm saying that consider the following image that contains fruits, and how much should I pay for this fruits? And this is the chain of thought reasoning that I'm giving Gemini for me to derive the answer. So pretty much similar to how we as humans would process the calculation. I am telling it to find the kind of fruits, get the quantity of each fruit, then go to the second image, check the price list, and then do a subtotal, and then add those subtotals. So this chain of thought serves two purposes. One is it will not hallucinate, as you might have seen in any of the powerful models. The scope for hallucination is very high if your prompting is not very kind of precise. So I'm trying to minimize that hallucination. Probably Gemini will still give me the results. If I don't give these steps, it will still give me the result. But by giving this step, I'm trying to reduce the hallucination steps, number one. Number two, if I want to come back at some point and validate what was the intermediate total, how many fruits did actually Gemini count for this calculation, this will also help me. So whatever output is generated, I will be writing to a data store, and this will help me kind of validate later. Because although this is a very toy example, now you might have already imagined how this could be rapidly used in a lot of retail and e-commerce kind of an applications. So there, if you have a customer query, somebody saying the bill is wrong, you would want to have some validation steps which will tell you how many items were counted. So this serves two purposes. So once these instructions are given, and then we run this cell, so you can see in the response section, Gemini answers exactly to my steps. So first, my requirement was to find the fruits in the image. So it's able to find out that there are 3 apples and 2 bananas. Second step, it gives me the quantity explicitly. So here it is in the text format. I could very well ask it to be in JSON format so that I can kind of write it to a data store. And then it's able to find the price of an apple and the price of banana respectively in that tabular chart, does the subtotal of that for the apples and bananas, and then it finally adds the total price to be coming as $6.12. So this is how Gemini is able to give me exactly precise outputs, and it's not only able to read the image or read the objects in the image and also compare 2 separate images and do a pretty decent calculation combining those 2 images. Now let's again take a step back and see how this can actually be implemented, if at all, in some of the existing large language models. It could be on image or it could be on text. And if you were to use it, how you would have to string together a series of prompts for this. I'll just break for the questions towards the end if it is fine. Yeah. So this was one toy example that I wanted to kind of show you and kind of get started and warmed up in terms of how Gemini can significantly alter. Now let's get into some real world use cases that we all can kind of easily correlate to as well. How many of you are stock investors or traders or kind of follow stock patterns here regularly? Okay, probably I should ask how many of you do not follow, right? Right. So one common thing that actually we follow in stocks is the technical analysis and chart patterns. So you would want to see when a stock is hitting a 52-week high, or when it is giving a breakout, when there is a head and shoulders pattern. All of these are chart patterns that you kind of analyze before you buy or sell a particular stock. Now, because that is an image at the end of the day, can I use Gemini to kind of use or analyze those chart patterns as well? Right? If that is a possibility, then you can imagine a model telling you when to buy or sell a shares purely on top of your chart patterns also, apart from your text data. So here I have taken 2 charts from Indian Economic Survey book. This book is annually released by the Ministry of Finance on a yearly basis, and it talks about the Indian economy, what happened in the previous year, what is going to happen in the next year, gives a global outlook as well. So I've just taken these 2 images from that publicly available document. These are inflation charts of advanced and emerging economies. The first chart is the inflation chart of advanced countries. Second is that of the emerging economies. And you will see the month on the x-axis and the inflation rate on the y-axis. Now, as investors, as portfolio investors or global investors, everybody is kind of very keen on understanding the inflation pattern, understanding which country has the highest inflation, what is the inflation pattern looking like. So if you were to analyze this chart and identify which are the countries whose inflation is stable, and then you can suggest your client that this is a country where you should invest more. Let's see how Gemini can be used in this kind of scenario. And although I'm taking just 2 charts here, Gemini can take series of such charts. So you can pass in a chart like this, then you can pass in a tabular image, then another chart image. So you can pass in series of chart images and then automate a set of actions. So I'll just demonstrate that as well shortly. So here I've taken these chart patterns. And again, please reimagine for everything that we are doing in Gemini. My intention of this demo is to challenge the status quo to see how we can rebuild a lot of things. So every time I show you a demo, please think how you can actually do this in the current ecosystem, and is it possible at all. So in this, I have taken, and this is my prompt instructions. So I'm saying that you are excellent at portfolio investing, and above are two charts, image one, which shows inflationary trend of advanced economies, and image two is of developer emerging economies. And from the charts, suggest me which country offers a good return for my investment. And again, here I'm breaking the steps so that it doesn't hallucinate. I'm saying for each of the country in the chart, you extract the minimum and maximum inflation and list them. So unlike the previous image where I just extracted the price, here I'm asking Gemini, across the chart, you find the minimum and the maximum value, and then you list them. And then from that input, you give me the countries whose inflation is between 4 to 8%. Generally, 4 to 6% is a good range of inflation for any country. So this prompt, again, I'm passing here in my contents. I'm passing the images that I had kind of loaded from my Google Cloud storage buckets. And then when I actually run this prompt, you can see the response from the model. So step one, it's able to extract the minimum and maximum inflation for each of these countries, combining both the chart images. And although I didn't ask the month of the minimum maximum inflation, it is giving me this extra information, which you can control by using few shots and tuning. But it's able to extract that and give me this output. And then out of that input, it's giving me the countries whose inflation is between the 4 to 8% range. So here you will see that apart from India, which actually completely qualifies this criteria, two other countries actually don't. But I think the model in this case interpreted that either of min or max being in 4 to 8% range. That is probably the reason why it is also showing me Indonesia and Mexico. I can control this by giving more precise prompts and tuning as well. But this is just to again give you an intuition as to how I can use Gemini to understand chart patterns. And now imagine if you had a investor book, or if you had an annual report of a company and you wanted to analyze chart patterns. Currently with text models, you can only do a RAG-based applications, which will answer queries from a text perspective. If that annual report or investor report has a chart of the balance sheet, etc., you are not able to harness that. So now with Gemini, you can tap the text, of course, and the images or charts like this, and then make more meaningful or actionable decisions on top of it. This will herald to what we call as a multimodal RAG. So tomorrow we have a 90-minute session on what is called as multimodal RAG, where my colleague Ravi in the same hall, I think, will be demonstrating how a multimodal RAG works. So you have a large PDF, it can answer questions from the text and also from the images and charts and give you responses, right? So now that we have seen how charts can be analyzed and we could also get these patterns. Again, I have one more chart where I can again analyze the chart patterns and get you the data. But something closer to the heart for most of us is, let's say you have a table like this. I have put on some fictitious companies and their market cap values, the ROCs, current market price, 52-week high price, etc. Now, let's say you have first seen which country to invest. So India was one of the countries to invest. And let's say in India, in the top 50, Nifty 50 companies, you also want to make a decision as to which companies is good enough for me to invest at this point, which is available at a right price. So I have taken this image of the table, and then again I have asked Gemini this set of instructions. That from this image you extract the market cap, find the ROC value, current market price, and 52-week high price. And for each company, you do some calculation. You find out if the current market price as a percentage of the 52-week high price, and then recommend me those stock whose market cap is more than 10,000 crore, ROC is more than 20%, and current market price is less than 50% of the 52-week high price. So pretty much the filters that you would set in your discount brokerage app to kind of give you signals to buy or sell. So now you have a chart pattern read, and then you have this tabular data also that for you to process. So when I actually run this, again, Gemini is able to give me the response in the same manner. So first it's extracting me the values from that particular image, which you might think it's a simple OCR case, which is fine for the first part. But for the second part, where you would have to do some calculations on finding the current market price as a percentage of 52-week high, this is what Gemini can do natively in the same step. And then once it's able to calculate this, now it has to recommend me those stocks which meet those three criteria. So it calculates the values for each of the stocks, the market cap, ROC, and the current market price percentage. And finally, it recommends me this fictitious company called Bharosa, which meets all the criteria and having market cap, so on and so forth. So this is another way of using Gemini, where I took a tabular image and kind of used that to process in Gemini. And now let's take a slightly more complex chart pattern. And let's say here I don't want to extract any value. Rather, I would want to just see Gemini to just tell me whether to kind of take some action or not. How many of you are familiar with this kind of chart patterns, the price action charts? Right. So here you can see there's a price action happening where as the prices go up in the y-axis, the volumes also kind of grow up. So this is a good indication that the chart is in bullish pattern, where the whoever is buying this stock is very bullish. He or she knows that or he wants to buy this stock at any price. So even at higher volumes, at higher prices, the stock is being bought. So let's say now if I don't want to extract anything in terms of volumes or prices, I just want to see if there is a price action theory happening here in this. So I can again take this chart pattern and I can ask this question that for the last few trading sessions in the chart, extract the price and volume just for analysis and check if the volumes and prices are increasing consistently, and recommend buy if the prices and volumes are increasing and sell if the prices and volumes are decreasing. This is a very kind of naive prompt, but again, as you can see, you can give more sophisticated prompts in terms of any other chart patterns, in terms of volume, price action, head and shoulders pattern, etc. So once you give this, again, let's see the responses. Yeah, so here it's analyzing the chart pattern, and in the response it says that I can see that the stock has been increasing for the past few trading sessions. The volume also has been increasing, which indicates that there is a strong buying pressure behind the stock. This is a bullish signal, and it suggests that the stock will continue to rise, and so I will recommend buying this stock at the current price. So this was another example where you could look at complex chart patterns and understand and kind of take signals. And these chart patterns, although I've sort of set the context for stock trading, you could also use similar chart patterns for your infrastructure utilization. Let's say you have a hardware, you are an infra specialist, and you want to optimize the infrastructure utilization. So you have those charts which could not only come in dashboards like Tableau or Power BI or Click kind of thing. It could be anywhere. It could be in the console also. You can take those images and kind of pass it to Gemini or integrate Gemini in the same console and then ask Gemini to kind of help you understand what is happening with the infrastructure utilization, which infra to shut down or which infra to use effectively as well. And if you're a data engineer, for example, you might have tried Spark and you might have tried the query execution engine, the directed acyclic graph that Spark generates. So you can also take those directed acyclic graph and then put Gemini and ask Gemini, how do you optimize those queries as well? And I'm sure as database engineers, query execution plan is something that we all kind of are quite familiar with. So you can take those query execution plans also as a chart and then put them into Gemini and ask Gemini to help you optimize your query patterns. So you can see how ubiquitous Gemini can help you in terms of harnessing your current images or text data and how it can help you take better decisions. So we have seen some examples of kind of business use cases on understanding chart patterns and so on. Let's now go to some examples where you as a developer or engineer, how it can significantly alter our day in the life and how efficiently it can help us build systems and generate code as well. This is certainly my section is my personal favorite. So next I'll take a simple ER diagram to start off. So here this is a entity relationship diagram which tells you the relationship between various entities. So this is a entity again of I think a store sale transaction system. And here let's say if as an end user you have joined a team anew and you want to find out how is particular say store table related to sales, so that you can make the necessary join condition or you can write this SQL query accordingly. So I can now ask Gemini to interpret this ER diagram for me. So I have loaded the ER diagram here, and then I'm asking a simple question for me to get the responses of this ER diagram. So you can see it first identifies all the entities that are there in this ER diagram, and then it also gives me the relationship as to what is the relationship like one to many, etc. Now for this ER diagram per se, it had about 7 to 8 entities, so it will not really kind of help you in optimizing things. But in large scale applications or in large scale enterprises, you would have many such entity relationship diagrams. So if you would want to kind of go through all of those entities diagrams and each diagram having multiple such entities, Gemini can be a quick way for you to accessing all of those images and giving you a quick answer as to what is the relationship and then how you can actually join those tables. So now with this as a pattern, let's now see how you can also apply this in some of the day-to-day world. So the next thing that I want to take off is an example of a data pipeline architecture. Here I have taken an example of a batch data pipeline. So this batch data pipeline loads data from Google Cloud Storage bucket to BigQuery staging table, and then it merges that data with the final BigQuery table. Pretty much a standard that we follow in most of the batch pipelines. It could be S3 to Redshift, S3 to Snowflake, etc. So in my case, I have taken GCP native tools. So let's imagine a couple of scenarios. First, you as a developer or as an end user, you have been asked to design a batch pipeline. So you have designed this batch pipeline. Now you would want to go ahead and validate this architecture before you actually write the code and implement this. Number one. Second, you could have a RFP response where somebody has told you or the customer has told you that we need to have a data analytics platform with batch pipelines loaded. So you may want to write an architecture for that also and see if that meets the RFP criteria. So these are some possible use cases where you could start or you would want to have somebody to validate your architecture. Now, AI pair programmer as a concept is something that we all are familiar of, like Copilot and Duet AI, where you can generate the code, test the use cases, or help with code validation, etc. That comes in your cut phase, in your coding and unit testing phase. But the design phase where you have to validate the architecture, validate the principles, that's where there is a vacuum as of now. So we don't have a model which will validate the architecture, validate your principles, and recommend you the best practices. That's where I am positioning Gemini as, with its multimodal model, as an AI pair designer or AI pair architect, right? So I've taken this image, and now I am telling Gemini to do two things. Right, so my instruction is that consider the following image which contains a batch data pipeline architecture in Google Cloud, and I'm asking, does the architecture meet all the technical requirements of a batch data pipeline, right? And then I'm giving a couple of steps for Gemini. I'm first telling, describe the architecture in the data pipeline image. This will help me validate if Gemini has been able to read my architecture correctly. Has it understood, or is it simply hallucinating by giving some vague responses? That's the first step. The second is then it should compare that description with its foundation training of what does a batch pipeline consist of, and then give us recommendations on what we have missed so far in the architecture, right? So before I show you the response, I kind of just want you to take a look, and the data engineers amongst us, if you can please kind of imagine what are some things that we might have missed in this entire architecture, and then we can cross-compare if Gemini was able to address that as well in its response. right? So I'm just truncating the table, and I'm then loading it to the final table by merging it. So I thought I had done a pretty decent job here, and kind of it looked good for me. But when I submitted to Gemini and asked for Gemini's response, that's where you will see what the kind of startling outputs. So first, Gemini is able to describe the architecture, what the pipeline says. So it's able to tell me that it shows a data pipeline that loads data from CSV file in Google Cloud Storage to BigQuery table. The step 1 is I truncate a staging table, load data there, and step 2 is where I merge the table. And finally, in the step 2, where I'm asking it to recommend what my architecture is missing, that's where you can see it recommends me a series of steps that I had missed. So first, I had not included error handling or fault tolerance in my architecture. I had not included data validation to count the number of records before I load and to count the number of records after it has been loaded. So I had not included that. And then I had not included any data transformations. So I had not told how A will be in the destination. So that is the missing logic. And then I had not showed anything about scheduling or orchestration. So how do we ensure that this data pipeline is executed regularly? So I had not showed anything about scheduling. And then about monitoring or alerting as well. So I had not included any of this in the architecture diagram. So it's now able to read the architecture, and as you can imagine, it's not a typical OCR or an image or a vision kind of a model that you have current in the market. So it's able to read and understand from its base foundation and give me recommendations as to what is it that this architecture misses. So this, as you can imagine, if you are a data engineer, for example, we could be very good at writing Spark codes and Python codes, but for us to build a data engineering system, architect, validate those things, we currently don't have an AI pair designer or architect. That's why there is a vacuum, and I think Gemini can help us. So with AI pair programmers, an architect can generate code. With Gemini, a developer can build and validate the architectures. So you see how the two ends can meet with these two concepts. So now, of course, this will give me enough indications to go back, validate my architecture, if it is for development or if it is for RFP. And you can also use it for interviews as well. Let's say if you are doing an architect interviews, and if you want the candidate to give you an architectural diagram and you would want to validate, imagine a room full of architects for 2 or 3 open positions. You can use Gemini to validate the architectures and give you a score out of 10 and recommend the best answer as well. I'll show you a demo on that. I have it towards the end. So this is how you can seamlessly integrate this across different fields. And this I took it from a data engineering this thing, because that's my kind of bread and butter. But you could very well take it for any of the other application design, UI front end, etc. Right? So this is where it influences your design phase, and this is where it validates the architecture. And then it kind of what it does next is something both scary and exciting at the same time. So Gemini can also generate code, by the way. It can, if you give a prompt, it can help you generating with the code, just like any other text-related models. And its coding abilities, again, has been benchmarked with a lot of other models, where, again, it exceeds them. So now that I have my architecture and I have it, let's say, validated, now a typical day in the life would be I would go to a Copilot or a Duet AI and open my VS Code and write prompts to help me get the code to load data from GCS bucket to BigQuery and so on. Now, what if I just use the same architecture to generate the code, right? So that's where the kind of real kind of thing happens here with Gemini. So here I'm giving the prompt instruction where I'm saying identify all the steps in the data pipeline architecture and generate the Python code to implement the steps in the architectural diagram. So when I actually submit this, so first it's able to, in the response section, identify the step, create a cloud storage bucket with so and so name, and upload the CSV file. So it's able to generate that part of the code, and then uploading the CSV file to the GCS bucket, and then it creates a BigQuery data set, and then it creates a BigQuery table, and then you can see it will load the employee file from cloud storage bucket to BigQuery, and then finally it will run the merge step as well. So you can see a series of steps that Gemini is able to implement from this architectural diagram, and you can now use the same architecture for generating the code. And now this code, you can use it in your IDEs along with the AI pair programmers like Copilot or Duet AI, kind of quickly validate this code and then deploy it, right? So this is how I would reimagine the day in the life. For example, you have a design phase, you write the architecture, a very high-level architecture, you get it validated, and then you break the high-level design to multiple low-level design architectures, and then you validate those low-level designs individually. And then once the low-level designs are validated, you could pretty much use Gemini to generate code from those low-level designs. And then now you have a good repository or base to get started and then implement solutions on top of it, right? So this is how Gemini can influence the developer's day in the life. So now once we have, say, a pipeline in this case used to generate code and load data to BigQuery, the next, of course, step is to build charts and visualizations on top of it, right? So as product engineers or as product analysts, business analysts, we build a lot of wireframes or UIs, mock-up UIs for us to build dashboards so that we get an idea of how does the UI look. And post that UI is validated by the product team or the customer team, developers actually go about building the dashboard in Tableau, Power BI, or any of those tools. So again, because we know that I can generate code from my images, can I use those mockups itself to generate code for building those charts, right? And another scenario is that we may use or we may have to migrate reports from Tableau or Power BI to an open source tool because of licensing costs. And can I use the Tableau dashboard images itself to generate code so that I don't have to really go about writing the code afresh? So here I have taken a Tableau dashboard image. And let's say if I want to migrate out of this tool and kind of build it in Python, or you can write a simple UI or a mockup. It could be on the back of the envelope as well on your pen. And similarly for the architecture as well, you don't have to write the architecture in Lucid or Microsoft PowerPoint. You can do very much in your envelope, or let's say if you're a meeting room and if you want to ideate in the meeting room itself, you could do that. As long as it is legible, you can still use the same template or images to generate and validate the architecture. So here I have taken this Tableau chart, and now I want Gemini to read the chart and identify the different chart types and help me generate code to build this entire thing in Python, right? So I've taken this, and then when I pass in the inputs, this is how the response comes. So it's able to identify the three charts, which are box plot, scatter plot, and bar chart. Unlike the actual image where you will see a superimposition of box on scatter, it kind of doesn't recognize that. So it's still able to identify the chart types, get me a sample data from that particular chart so that I can test out if the code is working as expected. And then it gives me the matplotlib code to generate or build these chart types as well. So this you can again configure in your IDEs or collabs and build charts and kind of integrate. So in any development or migration, I feel if you split into simple, medium, and complex use cases, simple and medium use cases is what you can easily kind of look at optimizing with some of these AI tools with Gemini and the AI pair programmers. The complex ones, I'm sure I'll be modest. You still would have to write your own code, or you still have to build the dashboards yourself. So this is another use case of how I can use Gemini in coding and kind of influence that part. Now next, we will take an example of a support use case. So let's say now the system has been deployed, we have a data pipeline built, we have the data loaded to BigQuery, we have the chart built. Now customers can ask queries. They are using this chart, they are using the BigQuery console, and they can ask questions around BigQuery on how do you write a query, how do you enable cache, how do you disable cache. Let's see how that part of the puzzle can be addressed as well with Gemini. So I'll come to these parts. So this is an image taken of a microwave oven. And here my requirement is that the clock, I need to reset the clock. And as you can see, this is a busy screen with a lot of buttons. So if I'm a first-time user, or if I've traveled abroad and I'm not used to using these kind of equipments, how do I go about resetting these buttons? And I really don't want to ask a question. In the current chatbot text-based prompts, let's say you have a bot from this oven company, you'll have to type how do you reset the clock. It will give you some kind of description, which is both text-based. But if you were to be guided, like where your button is and how do you kind of access that button, That's where again the multimodality comes in. So I've asked how can I reset the clock on this appliance, and I want Gemini to give the response in English and French as well. So Gemini is multimodal and multilingual, supports about 30 plus languages. And I want in the instructions to include buttons and also explain where those buttons are physically located, so I can kind of navigate and click those buttons accordingly. So you can see Gemini is able to tell me precisely that to reset the clock on this appliance, follow these steps. Locate the clock button. It's located on the right-hand side of the panel. So although this is a text response, imagine this text being transcribed to a speech and somebody telling you, go to the right side, click this button. And then it tells me, press and hold the clock button for 3 seconds. The clock will begin to flash, and then use the number buttons to enter the correct time and so on. So this way, Gemini is able to read an image, and you don't have to now write a lengthy text prompt just to kind of get a response. You have a problem, upload the image, or in the video as we will see next, Gemini will be able to interpret where you are in the entire scenario and give you corresponding steps as well. So let's say you are a SaaS-based solution provider, you have your own proprietary ways of handling applications, building applications. There are a series of steps that you would want to follow in your SaaS base. Let's say it's for accounting, project management, etc. A newbie user might be might miss certain steps, and they might kind of get stuck somewhere. So some questions which may be extremely verbose in text, you can just take an image of where you are stuck in your SaaS platform, ask the bot to answer this question, and Gemini can guide you as to where you are and what are the next steps that you can take to kind of overcome that. So this is how a multimodal chat will evolve when compared to a current text-only chat model, and it will significantly improve your experience with your solutions. So in my case, I have taken an example of BigQuery console. I'm sorry if it is not legible. This is the diagram of a BigQuery console or a BigQuery UI. BigQuery is Google's data warehousing solution. So we have a query being written here. So the data was loaded from GCS bucket to BigQuery. The end user now starts to write queries, and he or she finds that the queries are continuously coming from cache. So the symptom of BigQuery is after the first run, the subsequent runs it will pull from cache, right? So now as end user, I want to disable the cache and I want to run the query for the subsequent runs. For me, in this console, there is no cache button that appears instantly. So there is nowhere I can actually go ahead and say that, okay, disable cache. It only talks about run, save, more button. So cache is not very apparent. So if as an end user, I just ask in the console where Gemini is integrated, let's say, that this is my image and I get to see that data is coming from cache. How do I disable cache? Show me those buttons and guide me in those steps. So now when I actually ask that question, and let's say I'm a very newbie user, and apart from the buttons, I'm also asking the shape of the buttons so that it's very intuitive for me to find out which button and what shape it is. So Gemini is then able to give me this response that to disable cache in your BigQuery console, follow this, open the BigQuery console. The gear icon is what it's able to interpret for you and tell you that this is the button under which there will be a settings, under which you can go ahead, enable or disable the cache. So the normal text-based chat, which we are accustomed to, probably will tell, go to a button called more or go to a button called settings. If you want the shape of those buttons and if you want to visually direct the end user as to where the buttons are, you can give those instructions and then ask and make the experience extremely intuitive. I'm sure in complex applications like accounting softwares or calculating your income tax or building some of those critical applications, and if you're a first-time user, you can easily imagine how this will significantly help those kind of users. So now we have seen a kind of a range of use cases on Gemini, where we use it for understanding chart patterns, where we use it for understanding the architectural diagrams and generate code from the architectural diagram, help or automate the support process as well with those diagrams. And now again, let's come back to some other simple use cases as well. So how about recommendation as a solution? So let's say if you are into e-commerce and if you want to sell solutions and products where you want to make it highly hyper-personalized, the experience. Let's say you have a series of eyeglasses or eyewears, and the customer comes to your portal and says that, recommend me those glasses which are good for a round shape. So currently you might, the user can actually go ahead and select different types of glasses based on the price, the category, the brand, etc. But to make it highly hyper-personalized, imagine you log into any of your favorite e-commerce portal and say that I'm a round shape person or my weight is this, I like these kind of products. So Gemini can interpret what an oval shaped person is and also understand which type of products will be good for this person. And then you can see out of the list of eyeglasses that we have, Gemini is able to actually recommend the second glasses, which is slightly rounded, and say that that is best suited for an oval shape because they have a rounded shape that will help to soften the angles of your face. Right? This is something that I didn't ask Gemini to give it for me, but in terms of making the experience highly hyper-personalized, highly intuitive, and make it as a pair assistant or a pair seller, you can now see how this will significantly enhance some of those shopping experiences. Now, another pattern or use case of Gemini is that, let's say you have two separate images and you want to find out the difference between those two images. Again, some of these use cases, if I only send the first image and ask a image model to describe this, probably LLM models will be able to. But if I ask them to compare and contrast two images, which is what kind of we have been seeing all throughout. So here is how Gemini is able to interpret that as well. So these are two separate images. They look almost similar, but when I ask Gemini to identify what is similar in these two images and what is different in these two images, so it's able to give me this response that both show us a square in Munich, Germany, and both images show the same square in Munich, Germany. And the difference, more importantly, is that there are more people shown in image one, and there are also some differences in the people shown. For example, woman in the black coat in image one is not shown in image two, and so on. So for image comparison kind of use cases also, Gemini can be used extensively. And what you should not use Gemini, let me be modest in that also. Let's say if you want to count the number of people in an image, let's say if you want to segment the users in an image, and those kind of precise use cases or OCR kind of use cases, we would request or urge not to use Gemini for that. If you have a bank statement parser or a credit card statement, you can use Gemini to parse it at one go, but an OCR serves better. It will be better for those precise use cases, precise numbers or terms than compared to Gemini multimodal. So as we saw primarily for large scale understanding, descriptions, classification or comparison, Gemini really excels very well. So unless you have a pertinent need for using Gemini and your current OCR solution is good enough, you can still continue with that and then use only Gemini when it's actually required. And now let's get into some video related things. So far we have seen images and so far we have seen a lot of text related use cases. How about videos as an input? In terms of what Gemini can handle as a context, it can take 32K as a token limit and the output is 2K. So you can upload about 16 images at one go. So you can take 16 different images, ask a series of questions, image 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, label those images, and then if you want to have a series of steps taken by that, Gemini should be able to do it. For video, you can upload up to about 7 MB of video size. That's about 2 minutes of video content. So that is what Gemini can accommodate now. So if you have a large video that you would want to analyze, you would have to break it into chunks and then use it for video related use cases. So let's see some templates about videos. So this is a sample video of a famous tourist locations. And let's say if I am curious to find out what this location is and how should I go to see it, and recommend me 5 places which are similar to this video. Let's see how Gemini responds to it. What basically happens under the hood is that the video is taken and then it is chopped into multiple images in the backend, and the sample of those images are fed into Gemini, and Gemini will then be able to answer this. Again, here we should not be using videos or Gemini for counting the number of people in a video and those precise use cases. But overall, let's say I was thinking, can we use it for driving license test, where you have a person taking a driving license test. Can I take that video, upload to Gemini, and ask Gemini if the person followed all the rules like applied signals or went in the H shape, etc. Gemini can do very well in those use cases as well. So in this case, as you can see, it was a pretty monotonous video about a particular landscape. So it shows you the beautiful coastline of the city of Cliff, and it's telling me that the city is Antalya in Turkey. I don't know, so I'm just going by what Gemini is saying. And so it's recommending me top 5 places which are similar to this. So this is again where you are not only just able to see this image or this video, understand what is happening, but you're also able to get the text reasoning from your Gemini as well, and then stitch together both of them and then give you this response. Right? So I can think of some factory-related settings as well, where you want an environment where people always wear helmets, and if people don't wear helmets, you want to raise a security hazard, those kind of use cases. So Gemini can easily kind of be used for those scenarios for post-facto analysis, not a real-time use case. Post-facto analysis, take the videos, chop into multiple pieces, pass it to Gemini. Gemini can tell you if the people were wearing helmets or not. The auditor can then see those images and then kind of alert the people as well. Okay, extracting tags is one use case, and yeah, let's see this one. So this is a video of a train in a particular beautiful landscape, and now my question is, I want to identify where this particular train is and which are the stations that in this railway line, etc. So this is the question that I'm asking: which line is this? Where does it go, and what are the stations and stops? So again, Gemini is able to interpret the video and answer me that this is the O train confederation line, and it is a light rail line from place A to place B, and these are the various stops that actually are in that railway station. So this is another use case of how you can take a video input, convert it to images in the backend, of course, and then it gives you these responses. So now we have seen collab demos pretty much in where I've taken images and videos and I've uploaded them, and we have seen a range of use cases. And as we could see, this opens up a lot of possibilities in terms of what we can do, irrespective of our background, whether you are into developing or into financial advisories or building a SaaS-based platform. The opportunity is there for us to take grabs. In terms of how this all comes together in a front end, let's say if you want to build some demos over the long weekend, and kind of Monday morning you want to show it to your managers and stakeholders and say, this is what I did over the weekend, this is what I will continue to going forward. You can actually integrate those collab notebooks in a front end called Streamlit. Pretty much the code that we had written there can be uploaded to GitHub, and then if you sign into Streamlit Cloud, you can push those GitHub code repository, and then you can get these kind of output. So this kind of is a complete example of how the front end looks from whatever we have seen so far. So let's say in the previous scenario, we have taken this image related thing. So I have this ER diagrams. So let's say we'll go ahead and generate some text here. So pretty much in terms of demoing an end-to-end solution, integrating all Gemini, this will be a great way for you to get started. Doesn't require any front-ending skills at all, something that you can start to do immediately. And this is the prompt that gets under the hood, and then you will see the responses coming here. So this is the representation, and I didn't have to write explicitly that give me a representation in this format, etc. So for any mockups, POCs, this combination of Collab and GitHub and Streamlit can be a great way of doing it. And personal project that I am doing, where I'm putting together all of these applications, is called Birbal Gen AI services. So I'm just calling it as being intelligent, responsible, benevolent, and augmentative with large language models. So we discussed a series of use cases earlier in terms of how Gemini can be used for multimodality. Let's see how, from a enterprise perspective, if you're into IT organizations, how it can significantly help in each of those cycles. If you're into hiring team, you want to generate questions for a job role, you can select data engineers and developers, pretty much any role that you want. So it will go ahead and first generate the job descriptions for these roles, and then generate the interview questions as well. So this is a pure text kind of a use case. So you can use Gemini for text-only use cases as well. So it gives me a job description, minimum qualifications, preferred qualifications, responsibilities, benefits, and then some questions. So I have asked Gemini in the prompt to give scenario-based questions. I don't want factual questions to be generated. So it was able to generate these questions. And this is something that most of the text models can do. You don't need to use Gemini for this. But difference of Gemini comes here when you're trying to answer these questions, right? So now if you recall how we were able to validate the architecture and recommend what the architecture was missing. Let's say a candidate has been now asked to design a batch pipeline, and he or she kind of gives you this architecture, and you want to rate this architecture on a scale of 1 to 10. So now if I go ahead and submit this, so it first describes the architecture, then gives me a rating of 7 out of 10, which I think is liberal. It should have been either 5 or a 6. And then it also gives me an areas of improvement in terms of what this model is, how this architecture is lacking. Now, if all of this can be stored in your data store, and you as an interviewer team, you get all of these responses at one go, you'll easily be able to identify or validate and ensure that the interview process went transparently and was very objective and there was no hallucination in the entire process. So, and then you can, of course, add all of these rating, automatically qualify people based on the ratings, etc. So, again, I told about RFP validation. So, same architecture diagram. If, say, I have a RFP synopsis, I can again upload the same architecture, ask Gemini to validate and give me the response. And similarly, for coding and unit testing, I can again use some of those architectures to generate code here as well. So right from hiring to the entire cycle that an employee goes through in an organization, you can see how series of steps we can imagine, and to customer service also. And sometimes, again, another demo that I can show you is, let's say I have a table which is of this format, and I want the expected output like this. The first table shows you employee department, and next I want to see the number of employees for each department. This is something that I will find it very verbose to write. It could be in Excel or in Tableau or any of the tool. It will be verbose for me to write. I want aggregated data like this, because here it's not about SQL generation. It's about telling me which steps. How do I do this? So this I have done it in Google Sheets. So if I ask Gemini, how do I get this expected output in Google Sheets? So it's then able to give me the step-by-step outputs as to how do I accomplish this in my Google Sheets. Similarly, let's say if you have a Tableau or a Power BI or any of the other SaaS-based tools, and if you have a desired expected output, it can help you recommend those steps as well. So unlike the previous thing where we saw code generation, here it can help you with the steps that you have to manually click as well. So I think this is what I wanted to show you in terms of this session, in terms of what Gemini can do, both on images, videos, and a range of use cases.